I'd like to do to begin is just ask Essam to introduce himself. I think almost everybody knows me, but I'll talk a little bit about what I've been doing these days when it's my turn. So Essam, if you can unmute yourself and let us know where you are and what you're doing, and how honored it has been for us to get to know each other.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me first. I'm really excited. And so my name is Essam Daod. I am a child psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, and I'm based in Haifa. And I one of the co-founders of an organization called the Humanity Co. And now I'm serve as a mental health director, and organization that specializes in the provision of first response mental health interventions to refugees and people in crisis. We are active since 2015. We work mainly in Greece, rescue boats, shorelines, camps, and Turkey, Italy, Libya shorelines, and we expand a little bit to other areas. And now we are running a COVID project, which is mainly online services in almost 10 countries, in South Korea, Israel, Palestine, the Arab world, Spain, Italy, US, and France, and Greece, and also for the refugees and displaced populations. We do live sessions in Facebook for Q&A and online support, and we have also live sessions targeted to specific populations in each country, like senior houses, shelters, medical staff. Now in Spain, where there is no services, we stream online for them, or we have home visits that will start next week in Spain. So mainly our specialty is around first response mental health intervention. We try to, as much as we can, to deploy more mental health to the forefront, and to be, not to deal with what trauma can do to people and to treat PTSD. We prefer to prevent it than to treat it later. That's it, more or less. We do, yeah.
Great. And I'm Yehudit, and I've been with El Halev since its founding in 2003. The last decade, we have put in front of us the great task of becoming experts in teacher training, which I believe is one of the things we excel in. With that, 2 years ago, we launched almost 3 summers ago, we launched a pilot teacher training for people who want to be empowerment self-defense instructors and haven't necessarily had the training or exposure to anywhere that would be able to train them. And it was a great success. Since then, we've trained about 150 women and some good men to do empowerment self-defense around the world. We got involved because of Anat Arel in working with one of the instructors from LLF and working in Greece, which has opened up the interest in spreading the work that we do to the most vulnerable of populations, the refugee community. And that's why Essam has joined me today, so that we can talk about how to be culturally sensitive in an empowerment self-defense class when you work with refugees and people, displaced persons. And the special needs that they have and those communities have. So one of the first questions was, what should we be aware of? What is it? Here we are coming into a community that the majority of us really have very little knowledge about. So Essam, can you just give us a little idea of what, a day in the life of, or what are the special pieces or the special complications of living as a refugee? That would help us.
Mm-hmm. I think let's start with before we go to this question. I received the invitation for the webinar yesterday. Like if I received the invitation before, or I saw the title, I would ask to change it, because I think it's not about the cultural sensitivity. And to be sensitive for something is not enough. You need to know what to do with it. And this is what brings us to what we call cultural competency. Because, yeah, I know it's, Syrian woman, they are Muslims, you can't hug or something like this. You don't drink alcohol. So this is sensitivity, you know that. So what you do with this, actually nothing. You just don't come close to them. And sometimes you should. I just shared with Yehudit sometimes that a lot of the end of my sessions, for example, women, they come and hug me, and in front of their men, and I am an Arab guy, like I'm not someone with and they found it okay, and they don't say anything. And in other cases, these men actually attack another man or someone just because he hug or like look or just talk with their woman. And the thing here is, when you are aware of this kind of sensitivity, but you are competent and you know what to do with it. And I think this is the main message that I want to deliver today. So, and it takes me back to the question of Yehudit. The day is like, there is no like a schedule for refugees, or this is how refugees live. It's the same when I ask everyone here in this group, how your day look like. I will not take any assume that all of you will have the same schedule or the same way of life or something. And it's the same like this. You can't assume that all the refugees would have the same thing. Like all the time from the camp, I have a lot of funny stories. One of crazy 2015 time, like when really people were dying everywhere, camps and no aid. And one of the requests of a 17-year-old girl was if she can I arrange a hair straightener for her. This was her request. And if you come with an assumption or that they are refugees, they need to be okay with everything or something like this, then this request is very, I don't know, I would say it in English, arrogant or inappropriate. And you need actually to educate her, say, hey, young lady, like you are in a crisis situation, you are a refugee. How come you think about a hair straightener, for example? This is if you assume that this is actually the daily life, or this is actually what she's supposed to be. So the first part of working with any kind of population that we are not part of is not just to be sensitive to their beliefs or norms, but also to be competent. And to do like this, you need to do a lot of work. It's not just to come to this webinar or something. You need to learn. You need to learn about the different groups, ethnic groups are fighting in Afghanistan. There's 7. They are running actually from Afghanistan because of the tension between these 7 groups, not because of the US army occupying Afghanistan. You should know the difference between Shia and Sunni in Syria. You should know the difference between people who are coming from Dar'a and women who are coming from Halab. It's totally different. So all of this, no one can actually come and tell you this is the situation or something. This is actually a knowledge that you need to like homework that you need to do, so you can have the knowledge, and then you will bring the sensitivity out of it, and then you will practice it, and you will self-reflect it, and then you will have, you will develop the cultural competency out of it. So a day in a refugee life, really, it can vary from just sitting outside of the tent, like, sorry for the description or the comparison that this all the time takes me to the seals in San Francisco, just sitting there and doing nothing. And to people who are running a grocery shop with €1,000 a day, and people who are taking showers 3 times and hair straighter and stuff, and people who didn't take shower and etc. So people who you can sit and talk about, you know, the Sonata 37 of Beethoven, and people who don't know read and write. So it's very, and this is the you know, the start point of when you enter a place like this. You should know that there is maybe a woman in this group that she is 10 times highly educated than you and than anyone else you met, but she's a refugee. Last story, I all the time share stories. There is a man, I was going down from the bus before I just, you know, time that the police took care of the, become like the people who arrived at the boat at the end of 2015. And we were helping the police because we were speaking Arabic, so they allow us to enter this territory, and we were like helping people. And this man, after just like I make sure that everyone in the bus and everyone okay, and we did our you know, first response interventions and stuff, I said, okay, I hope everyone is safe, good luck. And while I'm going down, he just hold my hand, and he said, like, he was like 60 something years old, and he was like almost crying, and he said, like, the last thing that I imagined that I will see a young Arab man here, like, and I want to say thank you. I say, oh, thank you, like, it's my duty, it's my work. And he said, where are you from? I said, from Haifa. And then I asked him, what's your name? He said, I'm Hussam Abu Yunus. And then he said that I have a friend in Haifa, his name Hamra. And long story short, I go down, I call this person because I know him. He's the general psychologist here in our region. And I told him that I met Hussam Abu Yunus, and he said, what? You know who's this guy? This is Professor Hussam Abu Yunus. He was 2 times Nobel Prize nominee in economics. He's like one of the best economists. Like, he's a refugee. He started crying, like, give him money, and stuff like. He get crazy. You know who's this guy? Go Google his name and stuff like this. And this person was like a refugee coming all wet, going down from a boat. So you can find these people, and you can find really very, very simple people. Yeah.
So I think one of the tools that we have when we come into a classroom, or one of the strongest tools for me, is the importance of a circle. So you know, for those of us who come with a martial arts background, usually you set yourself up in a line. Everybody lines up, and the teachers stand at the front of the line, and you do your bows and you do whatever you do. In many educational systems, having that hierarchy is very important. What we've found in empowerment self-defense is it actually isn't a good way to set up a class for an opening, for a sharing, for a safe space. So we use the power of a circle. And I believe that in many classes that I've seen and teachers I've watched work, when we lead that opening circle, where you allow each person to have state their name, why they came, where they're from, a basic check-in, and the ability to allow them to take space and to be their initial selves in the room. I am Yehudit. I'm from the United States, but I live in Israel. I'm a little nervous, or I, actually learned some stuff before I came here, so I don't feel, too bad about it. But to allow them to show who they are in the room as an equal, and then the important piece of the instructor's job of giving a feedback on what I heard. I heard many of you say that you're nervous, and I heard that many of you are excited, and I heard that it's been a really hard few days. in in your lives. And I heard that establishes that first piece of safety in a classroom that allows students to begin to trust a process of being themselves. And since our ultimate goal, our goal is not to make a whole bunch of little Yehudits or copies of me. I want to help each individual find their own voice, find their own power, find what feels right for them, and to be able to make decisions on their own. So having that, taking away that piece of hierarchy, that I am the teacher and, you have to listen to me and this is what's going to happen. And of course, I am the self-defense expert in the room. And being able to acknowledge that with humility and say, I bring some knowledge to this circle and you bring knowledge too. And by sharing with me, you'll help me do my job better. By sharing with me the things that make you scared that you would like to work on, or the things that make you concerned that you would like to work on. And that's part of this process of, yes, there are things I know that you don't know, but there are also many things that you know that I don't know. And I believe that that's one of the very special things in the work that we do. Essam, when we had our conversation a couple of days ago, I want you to talk a little bit more about, here we are running a class where there's a random group of people that there are, you can have people in the room who, if this one says, I'm so-and-so from Afghanistan and I live in this city, and somebody else says, I'm so-and-so and I live here, all of a sudden there's going to be a tension in the room because they come with their own biases of each other. How do you handle that?
I will answer this, and also I will try in the same answer to answer one of the questions in the chat. Tasha is talking about that actually being a culturally competent to other culture is something impossible in somehow, and you need to be to acknowledge this. Okay, there is no way to reach a level that we actually can be competent or to be culturally competent fully, 100% to another culture. This is impossible. But it's an ongoing process, and each time you will become more and more competent, and each time will be more and more. And this is the idea. The idea that we are actually competent is against being competent. If we think that, oh, okay, now I am competent to the Syrian culture or the Afghani culture because I read everything, I went 3 years to the camps, I practiced everything, I have the sensitivity knowledge, and now, women are hugging me and the husband are, sharing, saying good job in the behind. Never, unless it can't be competent to someone else. This is for sure. That's why it's an ongoing process. I have a slide in one of my in the training for this that it shows it's a circle like this, and in the middle there is the motor or the drive is the self-reflective. You all the time have the acknowledgement, the skills, the knowledge, and the practice, and you do all the time. It's like a blender. You need all the time to have the self-reflective, to go out to look at the things that acknowledge, sensitive of, and then to go back. So this is in this term. So, and to your questions, Yehudit, about the group. I totally agree with no hierarchy in the camp. I think this is something that is super, super important. And also it actually helped us to, this is me? No. And actually it helps us to, okay, sorry, this is me, 1 minute. Okay. My WhatsApp is on desktop. So, and this is important because when you do the circle, if you have 2 groups of Afghani or if you have 2 groups of others, This started bringing everyone together. This, because the pack leader, I don't know, the one who came, the white person who came to this group from the outside, the one with the money, the one with the power, he put himself from the beginning as equal to everyone. So everyone in his subconscious that has this approach that he's better than the other next to him will see, okay, if my leader is actually acting like this, so I will be like this too. So, and this is the importance also in being in a group. I will just share a technique that we found it useful in creating these circles and using the cultural things in somehow, and it's really nice. And we used to do this using food or anything that have a smell. So if we are working with a group of, for example, Syrian women, we found out that first of all, the compliance to the group was really low. And after that, if they really came to the group, we found that it's really hard to make them like connect to themselves and like express things. And then, you know, from just experience, one of our psychologists that time, 2016, I think in Pikpa, she just make a coffee and she said, okay, I will show you how things works. They're like me. Like they need to start their day with a coffee. They need to start their day with the gossip, with like what happened or something like this. This is the culture, like, you know, woman stuff. I know that most of you, you know, will hate me about that, but this is like, and she started doing coffee and like doing like this with the finjan, and everyone was coming drinking coffee, and then she said, okay ladies, let's go for a session, and everyone go there, and everyone was actually different because now we are talking neuroscience. The smell of the coffee is actually what it did is activate good memories, as the same you know theory or the same system, or I don't know, the pathophysiology of post-traumatic stress disorder, when a smell of a blood can activate the scene from the war, is the same like here. The coffee is actually activate all the good memories in the neighborhood with their families, with the friends, and etc. And then you shut down your fight or flight system, you shut down your anxiety because you feel home, you feel safe. And then when you are in a group of circle, and a group that there is no pack leader, a group that all we sharing the same without thing, then actually the session as a psychotherapy was more successful and more true. So this is the same thing that can happen in a group like this. In my opinion, you know, this is something that a decision that you need to take, but don't hesitate to do something like this, to share some kind of food or drinks or anything that can make like before just I am sensei 1 to 3, let's start, it's a circle. No, it's not enough. This is cultural sensitive. But if you try to do something more, to use the power of the circle also to bring the culture inside, this can make the difference in somehow.
So I'd like to talk about the culture of women, because being a woman is also being part of a culture. And what we have found in the many places that we have taught with the great diversity that we have had the privilege of working with, is that there are certain topics that we all agree on, we all understand, we all, unfortunately, gender-based violence and sexual assault and interpersonal violence affects women across the globe. And on some level, it does unite us. So, you know, we are able to have conversations where we can understand the plight of a woman. I love what came up in the group chat as cultural humility, because humility is one of the words that came up over and over again when Essam and I were speaking on Sunday, in that, you know, as a self-defense teacher, no matter what group I'm in, there is no way I can possibly understand what it is to live somebody else's life. And I think that those of us who do the work really well are the ones who can say, okay, share with me a little bit about how this plays out for you in your life, and let's see if we can come up together with something we can work on that will feel comfortable for you. And when it comes to the cultural piece, I think having that same amount of humility. Today, everybody's talking, there's so much talk online about sheltering at home when home is not necessarily a safe place. Mm-hmm. And today we were, our instructors here in Israel had a video shared with them from someone who's a very well-known advocate for women and battered women in particular. And her talk was all about what to do and what not to do, sitting from an armchair in her living room. And while she may have much expertise on what's gone tremendously wrong for people over the years, and maybe even can tell you that the majority of stories that she's had, that when they behaved or did this, then that happened, that doesn't mean that for that individual at that moment where they are in their place, that's what's going to happen. And that's the choice they should make. So, the sideline shearing that a lot of places do is less appropriate here than any place else. Where we can't possibly make decisions for people, tell them what they should or shouldn't do. What we can do is help them figure out what makes sense for them in the community and in the culture and in the situation that they're in at that moment, because one response may actually end up being worse for them than no response at all. And that's a choice that they have to make. Another thing that came up in the Zoom chat, which I'd like us to talk about, is language. The complications of working with a translator. Now, while we will all agree, and Essam agreed with me on this one, that it would be better if we could get translators who've already done empowerment self-defense before they start translating. That's not always the possibility. And you have to keep in mind that any class that you are going to teach, if there is somebody translating, it's gonna take longer. So it'll take double, if not more, of the time to get through the material that you had planned for that session. And the question being then, how much can I teach that absolutely has to be verbal, has to be role plays, or has to be discussions on topics? And how much of it can I do in a way that's less verbal? Especially when you don't have a homogeneous group. So, it's one thing if everybody speaks one language and the teacher doesn't and there's a translator. Yes, better that she should have experienced an empowerment self-defense class the first time before you have her translate kick to the groin, because inevitably she's not going to be so comfortable saying that. Or demonstrating that, or being part of talking about that. I've actually had experience on this one, where during a break, one of the women who actually did speak Hebrew came over to me and said, every time you say groin, your translator is saying stomach. And I was like, oh, well, thank you for filling me in. And from then on, every time I said groin, I went doing, 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 because I needed that to be clear. And it was appropriate in that group. So having educated translators is better. And learning how to set boundaries with your translators is also important. Because many times you'll say something very simple, my body, my right to protect it, and 15 minutes later, they're still translating. And that's not okay. And professional translators won't do that, like if this is their profession. But if they're just somebody from the staff who happens to speak the other language, they come with their baggage and their pieces of what needs to be done in a class to get that class comfortable to understand the material. So they're going to have to give all this background and they're going to have to do explaining. No, if you know how to teach your class, you need to be able to set boundaries with a translator to say, no, I really need you I promise I'm going to explain everything. I need you to translate as close to word for word what I'm saying.
Yeah, and this I totally agree with you. It's a very problematic because they can add their, you know, what they think is right, and they will have a discussion totally about things that you don't want. So when you see that the translation is taking more time, just stop it. Don't be nice and wait until you finish, because you finish, or because you should know that in this time there's a discussion that you should know. And it's not about a technique, but usually it's about more about things that you should know. So that's why I suggest all the time you should meet your translator or interpreter before the session, not in 1 hour, 2 hours, a day before, to sit with him to see who he is and etc. And really explain this. This is what I need from you, please. This is not because I don't want to respect you or something. It's very important to me and to the process and etc. And to clear things from the beginning. Another thing that is important to working with interpreters is that if you are working with an interpreter who is part of the community of the refugees or the community you are coming to serve, it's a problematic, because this is a power. You are giving this person a power. You're giving this person an extra something that the others don't have. You don't know how they use it. And it's not because they are bad people or, primitive. No, it's because they are in a survival mode. And each resource that they will find, they will try to use it for survival. These persons sometimes can go and trade using this resource. They can say, okay, I'm translating, I'm the one that I'm coming and working with Yehudit and stuff, and I can bring you 1, 2, 3 if you bring me something. You can't imagine how they can use this power. People will start, because you spend more times, they spend more times with you or with the group, and you laugh with them and they speak English and stuff. The people around start thinking that they're gonna have money or they can bring something, so they will give them extra things, or they will allow them stuff, because they would think if they were, Judith will give her 100 euro, she will give her 5 because she's a friend. And so you should know that you are creating, you are giving something very powerful, because they don't have anything, and this thing become very something. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't use people from refugees. It's actually, we are coming to empower people. So it's a good thing, but we should know this part, how much is important and what's the sensitivity behind it, and to see if to limit this power. That means if we can, in this, like, to not to find ourselves, because she is the one that doing the translation for us. She's also the one that actually we do all the techniques on her, or ask her to make the, show everyone or come out, because she's translating. So if she's translating, try to, have more interactions with the other ladies in the group. And if you know that there is someone who speaks a little bit of English, so when you are actually doing like 1, 2 or something like this, ask from this lady to translate, not from the one she like needed her for like a very complicated translation or something. This will actually give more power to everyone, and no one will take this power back to him, to the camp, and try to give him a fake, it's not empowering. It's like giving 100 euro to one lady, and to others you don't give this 100, which is not fair.
Yes, so I'd like to, I'll expand on that a little bit. In many of the things that we do, you need a partner. You need a partner to demonstrate how a game is going to work, or demonstrate how a technique is going to work. You may need a partner holding a pad. And if you if you're working with a smaller group, I'm not talking about teaching classes of 35 to 40 people. I'm talking about a smaller, intimate group that is going through a long course with you, a course that's going to be, 3 or 5 sessions, 1 or 2 hours each session, but one where you're actually building that safe space and that safe group, the place where your tell is going to happen, where people can share their stories in a safe way. Then being aware of evenly spreading the who helps you and evenly spreading the who partners with you here and there to do things really helps keep that feeling of we're all growing together, rather than here's queen of the classroom and here's the best translator and here's the most physically talented person and I'm going to only use them to do what needs to be done. But really looking at the group and challenging them to take a step forward to be part of the process and not just a student. And I think that's very, very important, especially when we're talking about the power dynamics. Many times in a class, a teacher, a good seasoned teacher, can feel that power dynamic among the students themselves within the first 10, 15 minutes. Like, who the talkative people are, who the I'm going to show you what I know people are. Like, it's there, it's felt. And if you're not able to help lift up the other women in the group so that they also feel just as empowered, their experience is not going to be as profound as everybody else's. And the honest truth is the group itself is not going to have as a profound experience than if you are able to hold the container and help each individual step up and step into this process together, and keeping them on levels of moving forward that feel equal. That we're equally being challenged, we're equally stepping up, we're equally using our voices. I think that's important. I'm looking at the questions that were sent to us.
I need to give a comment about one thing, about the thing that I didn't know about it, the cultural humility. All the time it's like funny for me, because once it's okay to say refugees, then they say no, didn't say refugees, beneficiaries. No, didn't say beneficiaries, say displaced people. No, didn't say, they say people. Oh, friends. No, not friends. This is our problem. Trust me, I am a son of a refugee family. We are okay with the word refugee. Refugee is actually something very respectful. And when the other part has a problem with the thing, or he didn't know how to handle it and has his own guilt inside and he didn't know what to do it, he started becoming, trying to figure out different terms and it's like moving from what we called in psychology being to doing. Instead of to be with the refugees, I will start doing for the refugees. So doing for refugees is to do, no, it's not refugees, it's beneficiaries and stuff like this. It's the same happening here. It starts at the chat. It starts from like the webinar called Cultural Sensitivity. I bring out the idea of cultural competency. Then someone said cultural acknowledgement. Then someone came to the word cultural humility. So look at how hard for us to accept the idea that actually we don't know about it and we feel anxious and not comfortable with this. So when we feel like this, we start doing and protecting ourselves by creating titles. But look, what's the title or the concept that at the end the people in the US founded? Humility, which comes from white supremacy. This is the guilt of white supremacy, is that you need to be cultural humility, like you need to lower yourself to the culture, because so it comes from the same thing of being guilt about they didn't know what to do it. What I'm trying to say is, I don't care if we are acknowledged sensitive. Like if I really care, I would like email Yehudit 2 days ago, say, Yehudit, it can't be sensitivity, it's cultural competency and stuff. Like, no, I don't care. Like sensitivity, competency, it doesn't matter. Like, let's be there. So what I'm trying to say, humility is a nice idea. Acknowledgement is a nice idea. Sensitivity, competency. What I try to say through the term cultural competency, that we need to be humble toward the culture of someone else, and we need not to take assumption, and to accept that we don't know, and accept to know, and accept that we will mistakes and not mistake, to accept that we actually have guilt about this. Each one in this group, including me, not in an indirect way, in a direct way, we support people to become refugees. I pay taxes to the state of Israel. They bombed Gaza for 12 years. They're under siege. For 12 years, I'm paying taxes. 50% of my income goes to this. You, the same. Everyone do bad in somehow or in some way or etc. So this guilt inside us, we are not aware of it, but it's there. And he's the one that actually activated us in many incidents in our lives. So if we don't acknowledge this guilt or this feeling that we don't know, or we actually coming because we feel guilt or something, then we will start acting like this and say, oh, I this, and I'm like making terms and being busy with the doing, less with the being. So we need to know that we did mistake. I'm coming from a village in the Galilee that did horrible things and everything. So all about to bring all your unknown things and that sit in your unconscious, and to bring it to your, your daily life so you can deal with it. Then you will do no mistakes, because then your manners and your ethics and your culture will work, and etc. And with this, I will just my OCD, sorry, because someone asked a question, and I will wrap it up with this. Someone asked about that, if there is different culture or something in the same group. That's work when you have a common language or a translator, Wendy said. No, I tell you why. Because if you deactivate the cultural thing, not working through the culture, when you have a mixed group, try to deactivate the culture, because culture is something that we are acquired or learning through our life. Not something that we born with it. If you take a 2 days born infant here from Israel, you put him in France, in 20 years it will be French. You didn't see anything made and vice versa. So the culture is something that we are actually acquired from the environment. So if we working with a group, there is no only Syrian, there is no only Afghani. We have a group of Syrian, Afghani, Iraqi, Bangladesh, and African women. So no coffee will work if we find a way how to not acknowledge sensitivity, competency, to understand that there is culture, but to try to deactivate the culture. Because when you deactivate the culture, you go to the very basic things of human beings, which is drives and things that we're born with, and then we are all equal. I will give an example for this from another side. That's why you and me and people in Africa and in Somalia and in anywhere, we all react the same to trauma. Why? Because when we have a traumatic incident, we all activate a biological defense mechanism called fight or flight. We have the same amount of steroids and stress hormones in our body. All of us shut down our prefrontal cortex, the one that have all the learning and the ability to reasoning and abstraction and things. And the only part of the brain that works is our limbic system and very primitive areas in our brain that we shared with who? With the animals. That's why we act like animals, that protecting only our children. So, for example, refugees, one of the things that drive me crazy after the term, like when they go down from the boats weeks after, is the feeling of guilt. how they didn't help the old lady in the boat, how they didn't jump and save another woman or a guy or someone who fall down in the water. Why? He feel guilt. Why? Because his fight or flight is deactivated, his prefrontal is on, his culture, his norms come up, and he said, come on, how I did this? Because in trauma, we go back to be all equal, we all act the same. If something happened, you will take care of your children maximum and you will run away. So no families in boats. I never ever saw whole families in the boat. I never saw like cousins and families and second cousin and 3 brothers in the same boat. Never. I never saw. I only saw one family and another families. They're not related. Why? Because when there is a crisis, you move only as a biological cell. So it brings us here. If you do try to make something like this, but without making them traumatized, but creating a reaction where you actually try to cancel or deactivate these higher function of our brain, which is the prefrontal and the subcortex, and then you can do actually something that, more multicultural. It comes at the end. So using food that is more shareable to the region, like to Syrian things, coffee. To find coffee usually works for everyone because the smell is everywhere.
Essam, I think
it's something that can actually work.
I think I think I may have something that would actually work because, and I want to emphasize what you just said about how, as humans, when we get into that traumatized state, that triggered state, we do react the same way because we have the same physiology. And which means for our instructors that the grounding techniques that we learn and we use when working with a group, when we see somebody's getting triggered, are going to work here too. And while we may not be able to bring a finjan and make coffee in every one of our classes, another thing that is very shareable that people get is rhythm. And that can just be a clapping, stomping exercise where you ask somebody to teach a rhythm to the group, where it's a clap, clap, stomp, clap, clap, stomp, and then everybody repeats it, and you can get into a rhythm and then give somebody else to choose a rhythm from their culture that they can teach the group. There you now take it and turn it into a physical experience that is very shareable and enjoyable because it's playing with your body and playing with noise and music, and we like music. So
I totally agree with this, Yehudit. Actually, it brings back to my mind something that we used to do in the boats in the front of Libya, because there was different ethnic groups in the boats, and the boats that comes from Libya usually huge. They have hundreds of people, not like in Lesbos, like 40, 80. We used to have 400, 300. Sometimes you go to the sea for like a couple of weeks, not going back. So you can have like sometimes 600, 800 people on board. And we found ourselves with our partners, Open Arms, the rescue team, that because the Italian Coast Guard asked from us to give different people different colors so we can mark them as different ethnic groups, because if they are Egyptian and they have the yellow bracelet, so they will automatically go to the detention center and back to Egypt. And if they are Somali, they need so stuff like this. And it's hard for us to do this, but on the other hand, something that we have to do it is the army asking for it. So we actually use what just you did, Chair. We bring a huge speaker, and each group start teaching everyone a dance or a music. So the Somali bring one song and they start all the Somali dancing, and everyone like learning, and then the Egyptian and etc. And while they are dancing as a group, we used to give them, instead of saying where was all the Somali, come have your bracelet or something. So, but it's actually was an idea to how, sorry for the thing, how to mark people. It's actually become an event that brings all the people together, like the laugh, and everyone was laughing, and then the Egyptians start dancing with the Afghani and with the Nigerian and etc. So I totally agree, because at the end, if you think about, I'll bring it now as a psychiatrist and a neuroscientist, why what Yehudit said is working, because actually it's activate our right lobe of the brain where the music is working more, and these parts are actually parts that are not related to our prefrontal cortex, to the the part that is actually gain more knowledge, something that we born with. This is like the sensitive part of our brain. That's why we all say that the right lobe is more where emotions and etc. And if you want to make this work and to deactivated your left lobe, where is all the mathematics and rules and etc., music is the best thing. So I will adopt it. I didn't know that I did this. I used to do this to mark people. I never thought about it actually as a part where I can deactivate the cultural things. So thank you.
So, and I think we're at the last 8 minutes, and I think we've answered most of the questions. I'd like to address what Anat just wrote about how, when working with these groups, she's found that even if she knows nothing about the culture, empathy and love work as a bridge.
It can be enough even.
Yeah, it can be enough. And I think those of us who have ever worked with special groups, whatever they may be, whatever makes them particularly different from other groups, know that we get a lot more out of teaching them than sometimes we feel they get out of being taught. That it's a very profound learning experience for us also. And I believe that when you do that process right, and you get to the end of your course and you're able to share with them how much you've learned from them over the process of the course, you've actually empowered them in ways you can never really understand. And
but the important thing here, you only do this if you really learn something from them. Don't try to. They have a great receptors for people who are trying to they have a great receptors for this. Do this only if you learn. If you don't learn anything, say it. They would love to because
if they're one of our teachers and they learn nothing, they're not going to be teaching with us for very long. Because I believe one thing that we do well is we choose people who are passionate about learning.
I'm saying in a good way. Like, even if you don't be true with them. These people are so sick from people who are trying to make career in their back, or people who have mental health issues who are coming now to find meaning for their life. They are so sick from white people who are coming to, cover their guilt. They are so sick from people who are coming to make money, from everything, from crazy people like me who are, wanna save the world. Like, they are really tired from this. So
they have very, very strong bullshit meters. Like
this is the receptors that I'm in. And one thing just I have to say, because I think it's very relevant to you, and really don't understand me wrong, and maybe you say, you ruined everything, he was good, why you say that in the last 10 minutes? So gender equality is not right for them, it's right for you. It's something that become right for me, not because I'm a bad guy, because I have been raised in a village that the norms say that the woman is not equal to the man. It's not the fault of my dad. It's not the fault of my community, of me. This is our norms. Yes, it will be my fault, or you can come and accuse me if at the age of 36 and after 3 titles, I will still say that gender equality is not the right thing. I say this is the right thing. What I'm trying to say, if you are going to work there, you should know that what you believe, which is gender equality, is the right thing, doesn't mean that this is the right thing for them. For them, they think that it's not like this. So if you will try to make your belief become their belief, even if it's a good cause, it will bring them to conflict with their husbands, with their communities. And in a situation like this, you can't change mentalities. You should know that in your work with refugees, you should work through their culture and you should work through their mentality and not against it. Coming and say and trying by give them the power as a powerful woman, as a self-defender, as a martial art that I am afraid of. Coming there for them, you are God on earth for this woman that have been beaten every 5 minutes and sexually abused every 5 minutes in the last 2-3 years. If you will say this, she will take it. But if she will take it, you will be happy. She will be beaten more and more. Because she will go to the tent and she will say,
So
I don't want to.
Sam,
And
I love you, and I'm going to make sure I have the last word today. So,
yeah. So no, just what I'm trying to say. No, what I'm trying to say that this is the right thing, like to do it. If you want to achieve gender equality, you need to make them fit. You need to make them believe in this, but also you need to know that you need to work with the men. You need to make them be clever how to deliver this and to take the rights. Because if you just give them this, it's too much for them. They will have the.
So I'm gonna help you on this one.
Oh.
Because, and the reason I'm gonna help you on this one is because we may all agree that there should be equality among the sexes. I don't think any of us are naive enough to understand that we are not coming into a classroom to undo people's culture or their religions or their belief systems or whatever. Yes, we would love for them to find options, but we all believe passionately in everyone's right to live a violence-free life.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Why we go. We go to teach people that they have the right as a human being to live as safe as humanly possible and to learn the tools they need to protect themselves. So our agenda is very clear, and this is an agenda that transcends the argument of feminism, this, that, and the other thing, even though it is built on feminist theory, even though we believe in equality. The equality of, if we do not get the basic equalities right to start with, which are water, shelter, food, physical safety. If we can't get these right to begin with, then we could be spewing gender equality forever. So we're going back to the base, and the fundamental issues and the fundamental things that we're hoping to change is everyone has the right to be as safe as they can be and has the right to learn the tools to defend themselves. And
I have nothing to say of that. This is totally, I totally agree with you.
Yay. So I want to thank you for joining us, and I hope we're going to be able to do this again in Hebrew at some time for the instructors in LLEV, because I know that there were many who really wanted to join us tonight, but the English is just way too much for them. So one day we will do it in Hebrew, and I really, really honor the work that you're doing, and I am so thrilled that we will find ways to work together. And thank you all for coming and joining us.
And keep the good work. And beat all the bad guys, please.
There you go.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.